That's awesome.
Okay. Should we start?
Get this silence. That was reminding me of George Carlin. As you've ever seen.
I have 30 seconds. Should I start?
We could go around the room and introduce her. Go light. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You're on.
All right. Good evening. We'll call the meeting to order. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. This is the Marion City Council regular session, Thursday, October 6, 2022. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. Roll call, please.
Mr. Harper.
Here.
Mr. Jensen.
Here.
Ms. Atkins. Mayor Abu Wasley.
Here.
Mr. Brandt.
Here.
Ms. Menser. Here. Mr. Sterned.
Here.
Thank you. This time we have a moment of silence. Thank you. First on our agenda this evening, we have two proclamations. First one I've asked Councilmember Menser to read, which is for National Disability Employment Awareness Month.
All right. Whereas workplaces valuing and welcoming of the talents of all people, including people with disabilities, are a critical part of our efforts to build a diverse and inclusive community. And whereas this year's theme for National Disability Employment Awareness Month is, quote, disability, part of the equity equation, unquote. Whereas in this spirit, the city of Marion, Iowa is recognizing National Disability Employment Awareness Month to raise awareness about disability employment issues and celebrate the many and varied contributions of people with disabilities to our workplaces. And whereas activities in our city during this month are encouraged to celebrate and reinforce the value and talent people with disabilities add to our workplaces and communities, and affirm the city of Marion's commitment to a diverse and inclusive community that values all people. Now, therefore, I, Sarah Menser, on behalf of Nicholas Abu Wasley, Mayor of the city of Marion, Iowa, do hereby proclaim October 2022 as National Disability Employment Awareness Month in the city of Marion, Iowa, and call upon employers, schools, and other community organizations in Marion to observe this month with appropriate programs and activities, and to advance its important message that people with disabilities add value as contributing members of our community and workforce.
Thank you, Sarah. And we'll present that to the Civil Rights Commission. And then the next proclamation is for Fire Prevention Week, and I believe Chief Fagan is going to accept this evening. And you have something to say. Should we read it first?
Just briefly,
Before we make the proclamation or after?
before, if that's okay.
Go ahead.
Great, thank you, sir. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Tom Fagan, and I am your new Marion Fire Chief. And I'm proud to be on Team Marion and to help keep the city of Marion a safe community. The National Fire Protection Association has declared the theme for Fire Prevention Week this year as Fire Won't Wait, Plan Your Escape. This theme reinforces the critical importance of developing a home escape plan with all members of the household and practicing it regularly. In addition, this October represents the 100th anniversary of the Fire Prevention Week, the nation's longest running public health observance on record. According to the NFPA data, home, the place people feel safest from fire, is actually where they are at the greatest risk, with 74% of all U.S. fire deaths occurring in homes. The Marion Fire Department is committed to providing excellent fire protection through effective education, code enforcement, and emergency response. We're looking forward to a full month of community engagement to help reduce the risk of fire in Marion. Thank you, Marion Council, for recognizing this very important week as we work together to keep the city of Marion a safe community. I also wanted to recognize Company 2 and Battalion Chief O'Brien, who are here to join us as well to recognize this. So thank you again very much for this proclamation.
Thank you for joining me here.
Sir.
And thank you to you and your entire department for taking care of the safety of our community. It's very important, and we really appreciate everything you all do. Okay. Whereas the city of Marion, Iowa is committed to ensuring the safety and security of all those living in and visiting our community. And whereas fire is a serious public safety concern, both locally and nationally, and homes are the location where people are at greatest risk from fire. And whereas home fires caused the deaths of 2,580 people in the United States in 2020, according to the National Fire Protection Association, and fire departments in the United States responded to 356,500 home fires. That's astounding. Whereas smoke alarms sense smoke well before you can, alerting you to danger in the event of fire, in which you may have as little as 2 minutes to escape safety. And whereas working smoke alarms cut the risk of dying in reported home fires in half. And whereas Marion residents should be sure everyone in the home understands the sounds of the smoke alarms and knows how to respond. And whereas Marion residents who have planned and practiced a home fire escape plan are more prepared and will therefore be more likely to survive a fire. And whereas Marion residents should make sure their smoke and carbon monoxide alarms meet the needs of all their family members, including those with sensory or physical disabilities. And whereas Marion's first responders are dedicated to reducing the occurrence of home fires and home fire injuries through prevention and protection education. And whereas Marion's residents that are responsive to public education measures and are able to take personal steps to increase their safety from fire, especially in their homes. And whereas the 2022 Fire Prevention Week theme, Fire Won't Wait, Plan Your Escape, effectively serves to remind us it is important to have a home fire escape plan. Therefore, I, Nicholas Abuasili, Mayor of Marion, Iowa, do hereby proclaim October 9th through 15th, 2022 as Fire Prevention Week in the city of Marion. And I urge all residents to plan and practice a home fire escape for Fire Prevention Week 2022 and to support the many public safety activities and efforts of Marion's fire and emergency services. Okay. There we go.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it. Get a picture with the mayor.
Be shy, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, next on the agenda is a public forum, which is a time that is set aside for comments from members of the public on any item that is listed on the agenda, but not part of a public hearing. If there's anyone here to comment on any item that's not on the agenda, there will be time for that at the end of the meeting. At this time, we will ask for comments from members of the public on any item listed on the agenda, but not associated with a public hearing. Anyone here to address council, please come forward. Thank you. If you haven't completed the card, you might do that after you're finished, but then if you can speak into the microphone and state your name and address. Oh, you can go ahead and redirect it. There you go. Thank you.
Hello? Hear
Yes.
me? Hi, my name is Andrew Torres. My address is 365 Valley View Drive in Marion. We're here to talk about the regular agenda F3 zoning map update. We would like the council to allow more time for the staff and the owners to review changes and the impact. We just purchased the land about a month ago, and it's currently at I1 or M1 zoned, and it's switching to BR on the 20th of October. So we're asking to see if we could get more time just on the impact. We're here, we're a local business here in Marion, Via's Patio. We've been here since 2004, and we would like to explore our concerns on the access from the road. So it's kind of it doesn't have a direct access to the place itself. It would have a side road leading to it. We would like for the council to push to the third reading if possible, to gives us more time to present stuff, more information, and gives us more time to review and see the impact it would have on our business and have more options instead of just the BR zone.
Okay. Anything else?
That's all we have.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else here to address council? Please come forward. Okay, seeing no one's coming forward, we'll close this part of the meeting and proceed with the consent agenda.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda. This will include items A1 through F3 and resolution numbers 30875 through 30893.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as presented, including items A1 through F3, resolutions 30875 through 30893. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. The motion is approved. For the next part of the agenda, I'll turn over the meeting to the Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda with Mayor Abu Asli's abstention. This will include items E1 through E7 and resolution numbers 30894 through 30900.
Second.
Has been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda with Mayor Abu Asli's abstention as follows. Items E1 through E7, resolutions 30894 through 30900. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. And we have one abstention, and the motion carries. And I'll turn it back to the mayor.
Thank you.
Mayor, I make a motion to approve the mayoral appointments to the Marion Airport Visioning Team, Marion resident Destiny Hastings, Marion resident Jill Hartke, Marion resident Frank Sherman, Marion Municipal Airport Committee Representative Mike Goldberg, Marion Municipal Airport Committee Representative Bob Stokes, Collins Aerospace Representative Daniel Moore, Medco Representative Nick Glue, City Council Representative Grant Harper, and City Council Representative Randy Sternad.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the appointments to the Marion Airport Visioning Team, including Destiny Hastings, Jill Hartke, Frank Sherman, Mike Goldberg, Bob Stokes, Daniel Moore, Nick Glue, Grant Harper, and Randy Sternad. Discussion. Okay, all those in favor of these appointments, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. The motion is approved.
Mayor, I make a motion to approve resolution number 30901, approving a professional services agreement with Shive Hattery for construction testing services associated with the new public services facility and authorizing payment in the amount of $64,925.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 30901. Approving the professional services agreement with Shive Hattery with construction and testing services associated with the new public service facility and authorizing the payment of $64,925. Discussion? All those in favor of approving resolution number 30901, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. The motion is approved.
Mayor, I move to approve resolution number 30902, approving contract with T&K Roofing for the roof repair package for Marion City Hall and authorizing payment in the amount of $98,500.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 30902, approving the contract with T&K Roofing for roof repair package for the Marion City Hall and authorizing payment in the amount of $98,500. Discussion.
Yes, Your Honor.
Go ahead, Grant.
Yeah, just a question, and I think Ryan, you've got this project. Can you refresh our memories as to what the time frame will be for that project to be active?
Yeah, and so after this approval of the contract, we'll have a pre-construction meeting next week, and then we'll pin down a pretty firm schedule. T&K Roofing informed us that the lead time on the materials are 30 to 45 days. And after that, they said anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks, depending on what they find under the steel system. Their goal is to have the project finished by December of 2022.
Thanks. Great, thank you.
Go ahead, Will.
Will this repair the new roof, will that limit the use of this room?
Potentially, it is in their contract to provide weatherproofing. However, we're going to work with the city manager's office in case we have to move the council meetings. So once we have that pre-con, we're going to know more. We're going to know what their plan is, and then we'll have a final plan of action. So yeah, it will impact it in some way.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor of approving resolution number 30902, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. The motion is approved. Mr. Harper.
Yes, Your Honor. I move to approve ordinance number 22-20, amending chapter 63 of the Code of Ordinances relating to speed regulations on 44th Street. This is our initial consideration.
Second.
Been moved by Council Member Harper, seconded by Council Member Sternad to approve ordinance number 22-20, amending chapter 63 of the Code of Ordinances related to speed regulations on 44th Street. Discussion? All those in favor of the initial consideration of ordinance number 22-20, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. The motion is approved.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution number 30903, approving scope of services with RDG Planning and Design regarding additional services for the Central Plaza project focusing on the relocation of the caboose in an amount not to exceed $4,500.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 30903, approving the scope of services with RDG Planning and Design for additional services for the Central Plaza project, focusing on the relocation of the caboose in an amount not to exceed $4,500. Discussion?
Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so I just wanted to confirm, this is the emphasis of this work scope that we're authorizing is to develop, in essence, a concept plan for what that would look like. That's where we're at, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor of approving resolution number 30903, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. The motion is approved.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance number 22-18, approving a request to rezone property from AG Agricultural Holding and PDR Planned Development Residential to SR3 Suburban Medium Density Single Family Residential for property located north of 35th Avenue, and east of 44th Street, extended north, Marion, Iowa. This is brought by Sycamore Development LLC, and this is the second consideration.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve resolution or ordinance number 22-18. Approving the request to rezone property from AG Agricultural Holding and PDR Planned Development Residential to SR3 Suburban Medium Density Single Family Residential for the Sycamore Development property located north of 35th Avenue and east of 44th Street, extended. Discussion. Okay, all those in favor of approving the second consideration of ordinance number 22-18, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. The motion is approved.
Mayor, make a motion to approve ordinance number 2219, approving an amendment to the Marion zoning map for properties located within former city council wards 1 and 3 and revisions within former city council wards 2 and 4, Marion, Iowa. Second consideration.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve ordinance number 22-19, approving an amendment to the Marion zoning map for properties located in the former city council wards 1 and 3 and revisions within former city council wards 2 and 4. Discussion. Did you want to?
Yeah. Tom, the gentleman that spoke at the beginning of the meeting, do you know exactly what location of what he was talking about?
Yes, they met with staff just before the meeting, so we just were made aware of the situation.
Where was that location that? Is that
East
in
of 62nd Street, south of 151,
66
on the corner.
Okay. And he was
We'll-
asking,
Yeah, we'll need to look at it internally and bring back information to the council.
gotcha. So you just were aware of this
Yep.
an hour ago? Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
Your Honor.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Tom, could you just state where that, the property that he's referencing? Again, where is this specifically?
East of 62nd Street, south of 151. So just east of Quick Star, north of Victory, right on the corner. There's a new Heartland Clinics going up, and then there's 2 or 3 lots that kind of are along 151, but would be accessed through basically a backage road. Would be a private drive across a number of lots.
Okay. All right, great, thanks. I think they want to get in on the Prospect Meadows traffic.
Okay, other discussion? All those in favor of approving ordinance number 22-19, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Motion is approved. Next item is a public hearing on an amendment to chapter 176.29, parking and loading regulations regarding permitted parking, surfacing materials, and chapter 176.51 regarding building setbacks in the M1 light manufacturing and M2 general manufacturing zoning districts. Public hearing is now open. We have a presentation.
Yes, Your Honor. There's 2 ordinances as identified on the agenda. The first one is related to loading and parking standards for surfacing material. Currently, we do allow gravel and seal coat for those uses for loading and parking. We're proposing to move to Portland cement, asphalt, and pavers as hard surfaced areas. So that would essentially eliminate the use of gravel as a parking and surface area. We did look at our comparable cities, and we were one of the only ones, actually we're the only ones that still provided that opportunity. The biggest comment we got as we spoke to folks was about what we do with the existing surfaces that don't meet this code. They'd all be considered legal non-conforming uses, and they would be allowed to continue in perpetuity unless there was a major redevelopment project that would occur. So for any new project, they would have to have asphalt, concrete, parking, and loading areas. The second ordinance is related to setbacks on smaller lots in our industrial areas. It reduces the front yard from 25 to 12 foot and our corner side from 15 to 12 foot. This does allow our smaller lots to be built similar to the way they've been built out traditionally in Marion. It also would eliminate the multitude of non-conforming structures that would exist on 50th and 51st Street in those industrial areas. So this is a tweak to the code. It was kind of something that we found as a result of the rezoning regulations and was brought to our attention by the developers that are developing on smaller industrial lots. So we made this, we're proposing this accommodation, so.
Okay. At this time, the public hearing is open. If there's anyone here to address council, either in favor or in opposition to this measure, please come forward. Okay, seeing that no one is coming forward, we'll ask if we've received any comments outside the meeting.
I have not.
Have not, Rachel, Tom, have we? Your department? Okay. Please note that for the public record. We'll close the public hearing and proceed to the motion on the ordinance.
Mayor, I move to approve ordinance number 22-21, approving an amendment to chapter 176.29, parking and loading regulations regarding permitted parking surfacing material, City of Marion initial consideration.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve ordinance number 22-21, approving the amendment to chapter 176.29 on parking and loading regulations regarding permitted parking surfacing material. This is the initial consideration. Discussion. All those in favor of approving ordinance number 22-21, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Motion is approved.
Mayor, make the motion to approve ordinance number 22-22, approving an amendment to chapter 176.51 regarding building setbacks within the M1 light manufacturing and M2 general manufacturing zone districts. This will be City of Marion initial consideration.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve ordinance number 22-22, approving the amendment to chapter 176.51 regarding building setbacks in the M1 light manufacturing and M2 general manufacturing zoning districts. Discussion. All those in favor of ordinance number 22-22, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. The motion is approved. Okay, that brings us to the other department discussion, which is we have a budget discussion on capital improvement program funding.
Thank you, Your
Leanne?
Honor.
Yeah, go ahead.
As we continue to reach higher in the budget process, you've noticed we've given a series of discussions at City Council. On September 6th, the first of what we anticipate to be many discussions on the capital improvement program was held. At that time, we had provided to City Council a project listing, project sheets, a plan for prioritization, and a timeline. That timeline, if you recall, actually anticipated an October adoption. And here we are in October, and we're not yet adopting a plan. So we have pushed out that timeline as the analysis is ongoing. We're not going to provide a date as of yet because we are still working through that. But we have asked Michael Maloney from DA Davidson to present and assist in bringing council along on the revamp of the CIP. And he's kind of just going to start with a 101.
Welcome.
Tony from DA Davidson. Good to see everybody again this fall. I know you're getting into the beginning of budget, so I'll build on what Leanne just said here. I'm going to start with the cover slide of the presentation, and it notes this is funding of capital improvement projects in the current CIP. I know there's a number of specific capital initiatives as well as some additional department priorities that are likely to be added on to this total. but we're framing things from a high level for you at council today to talk about these. So keep that in mind as we get started. I'm going to give you a high level summary here on the first slide of content, and then we're going to talk a little bit more in detail as we go through. Just a review of the current capital improvement plan. So what are we including and what are we not including when we're talking at this high level today? We're talking about the fiscal 22 obligated projects and related funding, fiscal 23 obligated projects and projected funding, and then the 5-year CIP that's currently been programmed. You'll note the highlighting of unfunded project costs of just shy of $25 million. I want to be clear with unfunded. What I mean is we're going to have a little bit longer discussion later today about better aligning revenue and funding sources with specific projects. And the staff has been working diligently over the last couple of months to get to a point where we can do this on a go forward basis. So some of the things we're talking about today are foundational for us for this budget cycle that we'll be able to replicate and build on a go forward basis in the years to come. That's going to help with our planning process, our bigger picture strategic planning goals as the city continues to reach higher. Some of the things this does not include, it doesn't include some of the additional costs related to the public service facility. Some of you may have gone through the line item detail that staff has provided to date. You will note there are line items for the public services facility. We know there are some additional costs, and Ryan Miller and his team continue to refine that project. Staff will continue working through that as well. I mentioned the additional departmental requests that'll be part of the fiscal 24 budget planning. Those have not been weaved into this project list at this time, but they will be. The point now is to give the council this high level view of what we have in the current CIP and how we're going to pay for that before stacking on these additional needs. The last piece is the new Aquatic Center project. I want to be clear that while this is in the feasibility and planning stages, it is not yet articulated in the CIP document. So just want to make sure we're all grounded in these baselines before we go through further content here today. So that was a summary of some specific pieces, but I want to just step back and talk about our goals overall for capital planning. The capital planning is not about wish lists to make sure that different priorities are just met for different people or different companies. It's about investing in the long-term sustainability of the city. So that's in the infrastructure and the ability for the city to leverage and provide services. I want to just ground everybody in that understanding for why we have the CIP. I think a big part of this is also strategically aligning timing of projects. That's not just about from an operational awareness standpoint, but we want to start being realistic about what we can accomplish. We're a growing community. We're going to have additional needs, but we need to address those as we're growing up as a city in terms of aligning the timing and amounts that we can actually bite off on a regular basis. So that's, again, tying back to just the goals of the city overall as we continue to plan and grow. And then the big picture, the goal of all this strategy that we're working on with staff is minimizing long-term impact to ratepayers and taxpayers in the community. So we want to balance all of these initiatives as part of the budget process here today. Pause there. Staff, anything to add here before we continue on today? All right. So I'm not going to dwell on this. I think the city has done a number of these items in the past. I think there's a fresh perspective this year. The city has always had kind of a 5-year CIP document, which is best practice. And I think the important piece is understanding how those are prioritized, not just a wish list, as we said, but really thinking about the strategy of timing and how we layer those on and align them with funding sources. While we analyze this as part of the budget process and bring this to the council each year, we want these to be grounded in reality. So as we're completing projects and rolling forward, we're not reshuffling the deck of projects for a 5-year perspective and having wholesale changes from year to year. Now, I think there's going to be some evaluation of how this alignment works this go round. But like I said, a year from now, when we're coming back in this process, we're going to have a great groundwork to build on a go forward basis. And I think the key point of this is it's not just the capital plan off on an island somewhere, but tying it back into the strategic initiatives. We're talking about revenue sources and funding sources. This all needs to work together. Budget season's the reason and time for doing that, because we need to think about how we're going to fund these in the next year and beyond. Okay. This slide, talking about capital planning, comes back to the three pillars. People that have heard me talk or present before know I always come back to these three items. I can imagine staff is already tired of hearing me talk about them, but I think it's important for the council to be anchored in these three items. It's authority, capacity, and repayment. At its simplest standpoint, authority is gaining legal authority to be able to fund or finance any capital projects. I think very simply, we know the public hearing process for things like traditional geo bonding, much of that the city does on a regular basis each spring, or the potential for a referendum, kind of a non-essential type of project under the state law that may require a vote. So thinking about those pieces, we're not going to dwell on those details today, but we'll be revisiting this in the future as we talk about capital planning, especially as it relates to certain specific projects. The next piece is capacity. And we want to talk about this both from a legal standpoint, where the state limits what the city can have outstanding in terms of property tax-backed GO debt to no more than 5% of your assessed valuation. We're going to go into this in a little more detail later. That is the state legal limit. The city also has a self-imposed limit. And being thoughtful about how we manage this over the medium to long term is going to be an important part of this budget planning process. The last piece is repayment, which is what we're here for today, right? How do we pay for that? Very simply, we want to align not just the revenue sources, but financing sources and have a balance between debt and pay as you go and find that sweet spot for long-term sustainability. All right. I'm not going to dwell on the major capital funding sources. You'll see this in a little bit of detail going forward, but I always just want to make sure council's aware of what we can control, what we can't control, what we have forever, and what we need voter approval for in potential situations. Utility revenues are pretty straightforward. The debt service levy, we'll talk about in some detail. Road use tax and sales tax dollars are the other big drivers that we use to pay for capital projects, as well as operational costs. Things like the capital projects levy and special assessments would be minor if used at all. And then obviously the city's used TIF historically and has created a stormwater utility. Stormwater is here listed as council implemented. Not everybody has done that around the state. And I always highlight this for any councils when I have this opportunity, because while we put this as a council implemented today, stormwater utilities, as you know, will be a major utility over the coming decades around the entire Midwest, where we've underfunded these types of needs historically. So just thinking about these funding sources as we go forward with our planning. On the utility revenue side, I've addressed this council a little bit about some of those projections for the sanitary sewer and solid waste funds. We're not going to dwell on the utility revenue side today. As part of our strategic alignment to have appropriate funding sources and financing by the type of projects, we want the revenue funded utilities to be paying for those utilities projects on a go-forward basis. We'll continue to refine those and update those pieces of information. The utility revenue portion will stand on the side from today's conversation going forward. Doesn't mean that it's put aside in terms of what staff's working on at this time. With the utility piece off to the side, I wanted to just review with you folks those major funding sources here and kind of those big three of the debt service levy component, the road use tax fund, and the sales tax fund. Now, to be clear, the sales tax and road use tax funds, those revenue sources are not something that the city controls. We've got a funding formula for those. We have some projections based on those, and we've historically leveraged those in a certain way, and we have capacity to do so on a go-forward basis. Where we have the ability to control things is the debt service levy. We're going to talk about that here momentarily. Historically, the city's kept that around $2 or $2 and change as part of the overall city property tax rate. That's something we're going to be thinking about going forward and how that works and balancing that with our infrastructure needs and the city's overall valuation growth. So let's talk a little bit about capacity. Going back to capacity, I mentioned before the state limit. And again, that's based on assessed valuation. The current valuation year for the city, we're valued at about $3.4 billion. 5% of that's just shy of $170 million. So the state says you could have $170 million of property tax backed GO debt. The city has a self-imposed limit of 50%. Staff's work to stay below that. So the current $76 million outstanding is about 45% of that total. We're going to come back to that as we think about going forward. That's where we've been. That aligns with some of the financial policies as a city. We want to take this whole strategic approach and think back from our foundational documents, from our long-term strategic plan, our financial policies, our CIP, and our budget. This is all intertwined on a go-forward basis. So while no decisions are made today, I want council to be thinking about that as we continue to review this with staff. From a bond repayment standpoint, I mentioned the $2 per mil portion of the overall property tax rate. When we think about long-term, over 20 years, that's about $100 million of revenues coming in to the city from leveraging that at around the current levy rate. Now that $100 million is to pay debt service. Debt service is principal plus interest, which means you're not funding $100 million of projects. You're funding less than $100 million of projects plus the interest on the related debt for that. We want to keep that in mind as we're going forward. Let's go to our other bucket here with the road use tax fund. The road use tax distributions have been around 5 million or so historically since the gas tax increase. Well, we don't know exactly where this is going. Based on current trends, we'd expect around another 100 million from this funding source over the next 20 years. To be clear, we expect to continue to do pay-as-you-go type capital projects with the road use tax dollars, but we also fund some operating costs from this. So again, not a full $100 million towards projects, just another piece of the puzzle. We'll tie this together with another pie chart later in the presentation. So let's talk about sales tax revenues. Another piece of the pie here, and it's been about $6.4 million. It's kind of our historic number there. Looking till the sunset in 2034, that's about $70 million. Now, again, while we could leverage this revenue stream in different ways, this pays primarily for capital improvements, primarily street improvements around the city. There is a 30% portion that's effectively available for all kinds of capital project needs. We're thinking about how we leverage these three major components on a go-forward basis. So I want to at least give you that long-term outlook here for us to refine today. So how does this fit overall? So I mentioned early in the presentation that the current CIP, again, before those additional layers that we'll be talking about during this budget season, approximately $207 million through fiscal 28. So from these sources here, and I know the writing's maybe a little bit on the small side, but you can tell the biggest slices of pie there. Approximately 50% are going to be covered from general obligation bonds and utility revenues of some sort. Utility revenues would be some combination of pay-as-you-go and bonding on utility revenue piece, allocating again directly between those funding sources. 50% of 200 million, about $100 million there, $50 million each. So $50 million from geo debt, $50 million from utility revenues. That leaves about half of the total. You'll note the local option sales tax revenues at approximately 13%, and then the unfunded portion. And again, unfunded was just what do we have for that mix between geo debt and other sales tax dollars. Our current scenario that we're looking at is working to potentially fund those unfunded needs with additional sales tax dollars. You add that together, approximately $50 million coming from sales taxes. So of your $200 million capital improvement plan, 50 each from debt service levy, $50 million from utility revenues, $50 million from sales taxes over this time horizon. That's 75% of the pie. Happy to go into more details here, but I think some of the big pieces of this picture from this standpoint before we summarize and kind of bring it to a conclusion, at least for our high level discussion today. We'll keep on rolling, and I know staff will chime in at the end as well. I'm keeping this at a high level in this slide. We'll get in some details, but I've mentioned this previously. Debt capacity, debt service levy impact, and usage of local option sales tax revenues. These will be the ultimate decision points for council to make as part of this budget process and our ongoing CIP considerations. All right, let's talk about this with a little bit of detail. The city's growing. That's why we have demands on our infrastructure that we have. This is not a situation where staff and I are working with planning saying that there's not going to be any growth and being extra conservative. We're being reasonable, but expecting that the city will continue to grow in valuation and tax base over time. With that, we'll have additional capacity for borrowing. We'll also have additional revenues from property taxes, all things being equal. Starting with the capacity piece, we do project under the current CIP, again, without those additional layers, that the city is able to just stay under that self-imposed 50% limit. Okay, it doesn't account for those unfunded pieces or those additional projects. Not asking for any decisions or feedback at this time, just the thought that depending on our growth assumptions, that 50% self-imposed limit may be indeed a limiting factor on what we can do in terms of either timing or scale for projects on a go-forward basis. From a repayment standpoint, the debt service levy impact, we've got existing debt on the books. We're talking about potentially layering on some additional geo needs to help pay for these capital projects. While we want to moderate this over the long term, having a target debt service levy impact will help the iterative back and forth process between how much and what time to complete some of these capital project needs. So as we refine those lists and priorities, we need these to strategically align. That's a decision point council will have as far as their decisions with this budget process and going forward. The last piece is the local option sales tax revenues. I noted previously that we're looking to cover some of those unfunded portions of the existing CIP with those sales tax dollars, but that would stretch the projected funds out through fiscal 28, which would limit the ability to further leverage those for some of these additional projects to layer on going forward. It's a balancing act between these funding sources, and there's not an unlimited set of revenues available. We want to be thoughtful about our timing and scale as it relates to the projects and as it relates to the funding sources on a go-forward basis. I'll wrap up with next steps, and I'm sure staff will have some additional comments before any council questions. This is continue to be a work in progress. We're trying to bring it to you at a high kind of 101 type level today. I think overall it's about figuring out these strategic priorities, the timing and scale of these needs. And this council is going to be asked for feedback on some of these portions that I've said we'll be thinking about on a go-forward basis. City staff continues to refine these projects down in the details, and you're going to have further discussions about this. The big picture goal here is we're continuing to reach higher. That's the reason for the infrastructure focus that we have in the CIP. We're really going to try to set a groundwork that we can build on, and this will be a more straightforward process as we go on in future years. The last piece is my best work at graphic design here at staff's request. But I think the big picture theory here in working with staff is thinking from a mindset previously of having kind of a big pot of dollars being funded for a big pot of projects and better aligning these different priority funding sources with specific project needs. I think staff's done an excellent job creating a very good list of existing projects that we can build from and layer on and create this sustainable approach on a go-forward basis. Staff added kind of the growing up concept in terms of that, but as the city grows and continues to grow, this is just part about Marion continuing to reach higher. With that, I'll pause. Ryan, you might have some additional comments before any potential questions.
If I could, before you do, Ryan, I just wanted to put in one clarifying. On slide 4 a while ago, you don't have to go back to the slide. Michael had mentioned that we've always had a 5-year capital improvement plan. We have not always had a 5-year capital improvement plan. This is something we have been working on for a number of years. It's just, this is the first year it's been under finance.
And that's the last slide is an important one because Mayor, you've talked about Marion, we are growing up as a city. And as we take the CIP and evolve it, much like we're evolving the budget process, this is the next step in our maturation process. We're maturing here. So what we are going through, this is the first time we've ever established a budget process like that. We committed to you back in January when we had our budget workshop that we were going to revamp our budget process to make sure that it was elongated, that we were taking our time to be diligent. We were breaking it apart in small pieces so we can share data points along the year with you all, that we're being transparent as we're developing this and bringing everybody along instead of just having one intense all-day session where we're going through everything and just giving you all that information all at once. So we're trying to break it out in bite-sized pieces. With that, and kudos to Leanne and Brian and the finance department and the rest of our team for adapting to this new process. But it is something that we're going to be continuing to, we got growing pains with our budget process as well. It's going to be a little clunky as today, we had hoped to be further along, but as we are going through this process and better analyzing our data, we're learning things. And so we'll make adjustments in our budget schedule next year. We want to recognize and say that we heard you in January that you want to have more say in this process as we go along. And that's why we built the process the way we did. And that's why these touch points are so important for us, so that we're complying with what you've asked us to do, and that we're giving you the information to make those informed decisions along the way. And what you're seeing here now is that foundational work. And so as we get, Michael has alluded to it, as we get into next year's cycle and the year after that cycle, a lot of this work that we're doing now is going to be behind us. We're kind of making the sausage now. And so what you'll see moving forward is, and we'll get to this later on in the budget process, but you'll be able to see real-time charts, spreadsheets that will have the numbers where we'll be able to plug in and project out forward. So as council sitting here asking about debt service levy, what if we went to a $2.50 debt service levy? What does that look like? What's the impact long-term? What can we afford long-term? How does that play in with all the prioritized projects? What is the impact to our resident? We'll be able to real-time play with those numbers so we can have real-time data, make those informed decisions as we move forward and continue to reach higher. So this is a new process for us. It's something that's evolving. It's something that we're excited about, and we hope you are too. And certainly happy to answer any questions.
You're saying a lot of the right things that it's like, it's giving me chills because, well, some of us who have been on it a while, and I think all of us, but remember when we didn't have a CIP. That's
right.
And felt like we were making decisions kind of in a vacuum a lot. And this, and it's just a natural progression. I'm so proud of this whole team that we continually raise the bar for ourselves and we continue to expect more and more from ourselves. And we are growing up as a city. And so this is a natural part of that. But the prospect of making a decision where we have full confidence that we know it's well-founded and we know exactly what the impact is going to be years from now. I think that is what it's all about in terms of being a mature city and a mature organization that is really being very planful and careful about how we're doing things and doing things for the right reason and knowing where the decision will lead. I think it's just going to help us all do our job better and even serve the community to a greater extent. So I'm excited to see where this goes. But any other questions? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just, again, the comment, I came on city council 5 years ago when the CIP was just a teenager. And maybe actually before that, it was just getting born.
Yeah.
I guess
Yeah.
is the way I should probably project that. Then it grew and became a teenager. And what we have seen is the manner in how we have managed the CIP has improved over those 5 years. Okay. So I'm glad to see that. What I've also seen is the magnitude and the size of that CIP has grown dramatically because the city is growing. But the two concerns that I have been kind of dealing with as that continues to grow is one, the size of the CIP, can we get it done? The amount we always budget each year, can we really get it done? And then the ongoing concern of how much of that can we afford on an ongoing basis? So what you are talking about, what the city is now doing in a very, as Nick said, a very mindful, I think a very smart, a very professional way, is we are now dealing with those aspects. So it's continuing. Now we're past the teenager stage, we're moving into the adult stage. And I think we are now managing this in the appropriate manner as a growing city should be doing it. So from that standpoint, I have a lot more confidence on how we do the CIP. I think we still have some work to do to make sure that how we are doing it and how we're presenting it is giving our citizens the best bang for their buck, because again, it has an impact on their the debt service levy rate actually certainly has an impact on how much they have to pay. The CIP is always the most visible part of what the city does. Everybody's seeing that. A lot of the rest of the budget, they take for granted. The CIP portion, they're seeing it. They're talking about it all the time. They're always asking about it all the time. So it is one of the most important areas to deal with. But I think we're continuing to do it in the right manner. So I guess I'm very proud of the staff and the changes and the steps that they're doing right now. So moving in the right direction. Kudos for all of that.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Well, maybe in a different way, I want to echo the theme that the mayor and Steve have just stated. What I see here is that at the high level, this is portfolio management that we're trying to mature, that we are maturing. And within that, portfolio management. We're aligning the relative priority of all of the projects that are in front of us with the funding opportunities and the controls around the funding opportunities that we have to be sensitive to. And then from that, we align the timing and manage the timing of those individual projects. And so if I just, put my, Marion resident hat on, there's a lot that we need to do. There's some things that are elective, but if we think in terms of timing, funding, and priority, what we're really doing is managing the risk in front of the community. And so if that's an accurate depiction of kind of at high level what we're doing, I applaud this effort and say full steam ahead. Keep working the issues and keep driving this from a corrective phase now. We're trying to implement this to move it into being our systemic behavior pattern. So I like this.
Thank you. I just wanted to echo what Mayor Nick said as well too. I remember the days when we had the CIP and in the infinite stages, and that's, obviously it was more of a wish list of getting things put on paper as far as priorities go. I think also too, what Grandpa Harper was saying was, managing a portfolio. I think this is going to give us an opportunity to take a look at how our infrastructure works and how those revenue streams are generated as well. I had made a couple of notes here to myself in my just in the last few days here, we probably had a handful of EV cars come online for insurance here in the local community. So these kind of play into roles as to what the vision looks like when we talk about the road tax, road use tax. We're going to see a huge influx in fuel sales, which is obviously going to drive a change to the revenue stream for our road use tax. So it's going to also give us as the city council an opportunity to start responding, reacting, and forecasting what some of these trends are going to look like going forward. Tom mentioned the other night, I won't mention, I had to go to a retailer, thank goodness not in our city, for some supplies. And I was shocked to see how empty the shelves were. I couldn't believe how bare. It almost made me just wonder how and when this store will be closing, which brings us back to the e-commerce. So all the Amazon vehicles, the deliveries, I see them now starting to park on the right of ways in some cities because the streets are so busy. What does that look like for us? That entire infrastructure, what does the sales tax look like? It used to be years ago, we would order stuff up online because we didn't have to pay the sales tax. And guess what? We have to pay sales tax now today. So those are some of the things I kind of would like to dig into that, what does that mean to Marion? What does online purchasing mean? And where, do those sales tax still line up to the registers in our local communities? But again, that's all can be strapped back to this and taking a look at this. So again, too, like what Steve said, this is a lot of people follow different things, but council will really be following this even more closely because of the filling in on the details and looking at it real time. It'll really help us see that future. So thanks.
Well, I think just in the big picture that it just creating a process that for decision making that ties to the strategic initiatives that we can see where it's taking us. So we can tell residents this is the impact and this is the reason. We have to be able to explain to people why we're making decisions and here's the reason why, and this is how it's going to impact us. I think all that just helps us to do our job better as a city, and just it's great that we're here. We've been asking for this for a decade, and it's great that we're here at this point now. So thank you. Anyone else? Anything else? Is that it for this? Okay. That brings us to the public forum, which is the time set aside on the agenda for comments from members of the public on any topic. If there's anyone here to address the council, please come forward and address the council at this time. Okay, seeing no one's coming forward, we'll go ahead and close that part of the meeting and move on to council comments. Mr. Sternad, anything?
Thank you for those who showed up for the Healthiest State Walk with 4 of us there yesterday, and a great welcome from the mayor. So, and we actually got it in between the rain and right in the nick of time. So thank you, everybody, for participating in that. And then just a kind of a random comment, a couple times now, as it's getting darker earlier, I've been in the uptown, and I just love that fall setup that has been done up there, and the number of people who you just see randomly there taking pictures or hanging out in the kind of fall festival left over there is so fun to see, as well as the, if you haven't noticed, the lights. I think they were focused on in one of the online platforms, but the lights that they've done now as part of the streetscaping there are so cool. I guess they'll change and be different lit. So I just love seeing the different pieces coming together now to make that whole project look like it does.
Thanks for all your work on Be Well, Marion. Go ahead. Will?
I don't think I have anything.
Okay. Steve?
My only comment is probably similar to a lot of you. We're starting to see the end of construction season. So we're starting to see some of the streets opening, some of the street projects being done. Obviously, that means that unfortunately the cold weather is around the corner, but the good thing is we've got a lot of projects done this year, and people are seeing the changes, and I think enjoying that. So that's all I've got.
Okay.
Just one item, Chief Fagan, welcome to Marion, and wish you the very best. And we're very glad that you're here.
Okay, for my part, since the last meeting, we had the dog fashion show in the Artway, which was a lot of fun. We had 24 entrants. It was a tough decision, but saw a lot of.
Were you the judge?
I was one of the judges. I got to greet the dog mayor of Hiawatha. He was here for the 2nd year in a row. Jake. It was really well attended. There were lots of families. It was just a great event, and it was a lot of fun. Yesterday got the privilege of handing out the checks for the grant program that we did for the small businesses at the chamber office. It was really fun to have those recipients of the grants knowing how much they really could use the funds, and they all came very happily, accepted their checks. I've had the opportunity to meet with several investors, sat at the city table for the History Makers Gala at the African American Museum sponsors. We had the Side Paths ribbon cutting along 151, and got to speak to a group of ladies this morning that included my 5th grade teacher, which was a lot of fun. That's it. Thanks everyone for your hard work, and keep reaching higher. Appreciate it. Meeting's adjourned.
Nope.
Oh, well, we're done with this part of the meeting. We have a closed session. So, Mr. Harper.
Okay. Thank you, Your Honor. I move to adjourn to closed session regarding real estate transactions as permitted under section 21.51 J
tonight.
J of the Code of Iowa.
Second.
We've been moved and seconded to adjourn to closed session regarding real estate transactions as permitted under section 21.51 J of the Code of Iowa. Any, maybe have the legal statement, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. I've reviewed the proposed subject matter for the closed session and find the same to be appropriate under Iowa Code section 21.51 J.
Okay, any discussion before we vote? All those in favor of adjourning the closed. Oh, I'm sorry, we need roll call. Boy.
Mr.
And
Harper?
and it's written right here, roll call.
Harper?
Yes.
Mr. Jensen?
Yes.
Mayor Abu
Yes.
Mr. Brandt?
Yes.
Ms. Menzer?
Yes.
Mr. Sterned?
Yes.
Okay, we're adjourned to closed session. We'll return to open session upon completion. Thank you for joining us. Yeah, maybe so.